What are your top priorities as a candidate for the school committee?
My top priorities as a candidate for school committee are to support the district's strategic plan. This is a 5-year plan that was developed in collaboration with teachers, administrators, parents, students, and community stakeholders last year, and takes us all the way through 2029. I feel my role in school committee is not to push my own agendas, push my own ideas and ideologies. It's to support the district's objectives however I can. So that includes being a voice for students and families, being a voice for faculty and staff, and being a voice and a conduit for stakeholders, into the district and into the administration. It's also to support the administration's objectives, but again, that happens with stakeholder input. Now, in order to achieve those objectives, we do have our some focus areas. Budget is fundamental. We're pretty fortunate in Plymouth to have pretty good funding and excellent support from our town, from both the town meeting members as well as the Plymouth Select Board. Fortunately, we get I think Plymouth schools are well funded and we get what we need. But it doesn't mean there's infinite money out there. One of the biggest challenges we have is that every year we are basically just striving to get a level service budget. That's good because it's better than the alternative, which is declining services. But I dream of the day when we're actually getting something above that level service budget and are actually increasing our student services. That said, we've been very creative and very successful using the dollars that we have without overly burdening Plymouth taxpayers. Secondly, our facilities. We have some fabulous facilities in Plymouth, and we have some not so fabulous facilities. But even those fabulous ones, like our 2 high schools, take millions of dollars to maintain. It's the reality of operating a large district with a lot of facilities. So that needs to be a top priority, because what we're seeing is inequities across the district, where you have some students that are in fantastic educational scenarios and some that are not. All of our schools are great, all of our staff is great, but there are some schools you walk through where students are definitely in a compromised scenario, or you have teachers with offices and stairwells, things like that. That shouldn't happen in 2025. So getting helping us get to a better situation there is a top priority. Next is helping all of our students succeed. So it's very important that we make sure that every student in the district has all the tools they need to succeed, whether or not they're taking AP classes or they're learning English as a second language, or both in some cases. We have a growing population of students that require some type of special education. And again, that could be language related, it could be cognitive, it could be social, emotional, but Plymouth Public Schools is committed to making sure that every student has equal access and equal opportunity. I think those would be my biggest priorities right now.
What challenges do you see as a candidate for the school committee?
The biggest challenges I see for Plymouth Public Schools are, one, retaining our amazing staff. I think we have a staff that I would put up against any district in the Commonwealth, but we can't take them for granted. Being in the South Shore, there's no shortage of other districts that our staff could find good jobs in. So making sure that we are not only giving them top class wages, but also the ideal working conditions. Making sure that we are keeping these people and giving them a reason to stay in Plymouth is huge. Our schools are only as good as our teachers and staff, and so that absolutely has to always be a focus. I've been fortunate to be part of our last 2 contract negotiation cycles, where I think we were able to give our teachers and staff much needed pay raises, but it's never enough. Teachers across the country don't get paid nearly what they really deserve. That's a problem that's nationwide. It's not unique to Plymouth, but making sure that we are as competitive as we can be with other schools in the area has to be a top priority. Second, maintaining an adequate budget. As I said earlier, it's a priority for me. We are fortunate in Plymouth to have well-funded schools, but that is an annual challenge. It requires strong collaboration between the school committee, the select board, the administration, and school principals to make sure that we are utilizing every dollar as efficiently and effectively as possible. We need to make sure we are constantly making a strong case to our town meeting members who have to approve these budgets. But the reality is that every year it gets more and more expensive. Maintaining level service doesn't mean that the budget doesn't increase every year. Unfortunately, we have inflation. We have staff that has well-deserved raises every year. That means our budget grows every single year, whether or not we do anything more in terms of student services. So it's an annual challenge, and it's an annual thing that we have to make sure that we are working collaboratively to address. Finally, one of our challenges, I think, is trying to keep out forces who want to impose either their own ideologies or special interests into the schools. As a school committee, our job is not overseeing curriculum. It's not to tell teachers how to do their jobs. It's to enable them to do what they do best. So I think it's important that we make sure that we are, as a school committee, focusing on our core priorities and not overstepping and trying to impose our individual ideas on how we think what should and shouldn't be taught, what books should or shouldn't be in schools. That is the job of professional educators, not school committee members.
What opportunities do you see as a candidate for the school committee?
The areas I see where the school committee has more opportunities to do what they do better is, one, closer collaboration with the select board. I think we took a really, really strong step forward in that over the past year. We learned a year ago through that budget cycle that being on different pages doesn't help anyone. We really need to work together to be a united front and be able to present a strong budget to town meeting that both sides agree on, and that we've really worked through issues well before it's out in the public. So it's more continuing exactly what we've done the past year. I think this past year we saw things were very successful, and I think there's more opportunities for us to continue to work closer. Happy to say that the current makeup of the school committee and the select board get along well and like working together. So I think continuing that process so that future budgets are even more and more aligned, I think will be very positive. Second, we have a huge opportunity with the state to replace two of our oldest schools. Hedge and Cold Spring are two of our schools where students are kind of in compromised situations. We were fortunate enough to be selected by the Massachusetts State Building Authority to start the process of designing and scoping out a new building that will hopefully be built in the future on the Cold Spring property. That's just such a wonderful opportunity. I would love to be part of that process. We were fortunate to be selected. We're going through that now, and hopefully, if all goes well, we'll be able to come to town meeting with a strong proposal for a school. Again, that's going to be expensive, so with that opportunity comes at big cost, but it's something that is overdue, and I think we can get the town support behind that. The next thing I think there's really opportunity, and something I do see lacking, is getting more and more input from students in the process. We generally hear from some either vocal families, maybe a vocal teacher here and there, but to really understand what's going on in the schools, you need more and more input from students. So I would really love to see more formal avenues, whether it's town halls, office hours, et cetera, like that, where we really try to encourage more and more input from students, and meeting them where they are. Students, don't necessarily, email the way, a lot of adults do. So making sure that we are giving them avenues, to reach us, I think would be huge. It's the one thing that I see that's missing a lot of times from our meetings is, what are their perspectives of the people that we're actually here to serve, which is the students at the end of the day. I'm very proud of my track record and accomplishments on the school committee the past 4+ years. I believe I've earned the respect of my peers, the administration, faculty and staff, and and families and students. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how proud and how great a job I think I've done. It's up to the voters, and I hope that people agree that I've earned that right to serve the community in every 3 years. And I'll repeat that my goal is to serve. It's not about me. It's not about my agenda. It's not about my ideologies. It's about service. And so my number one priority is to be a conduit between students and families, teachers and staff, to the administration, and make sure they know they have a voice. I'm an open door. My cell phone is on every calendar. It's hanging up in every building in our district. I can find you dozens of examples where I am very responsive to families and anyone that has a need. So if you text me, you'll hear back from me. I think the biggest difference between me and the other candidates is I'm not here asking you to trust me. I'm not asking you to take a chance on me. The community knows me. Families and students know me. You know that I'll do what I say I'll do. I've proven that. I'm here, and I will. I'm asking for your support to continue to serve. Again, I've proven that I'll do what I say I'll do. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to look at what I've done the last 4 years and decide whether or not you want that. To want me to continue to represent you. Thank you.